The year is 2022, and an advertisement from an Italian insurance company has just detonated a cultural firestorm across the Western world. The commercial chose to depict one of the most iconic scenes in Christian mythology, the Last Supper. But in this modern reimagining, a dog unceremoniously leaps onto the table, taking a seat shoulder to shoulder with the supreme deity, Jesus, who traditionally occupies the central, hallowed position. But that wasn't even the main point of contention. The true source of the outrage lay on the table itself: food. You see, in the foundational myth, Jesus and his 12 disciples were devout Jews. Their final meal together would have consisted of unleavened bread and red wine, set to the backdrop of that eternally classic line, "One of you will betray me." The advertisement, however, swaps this sacred fare for a thoroughly Italian classic, spaghetti carbonara. And the dialogue. It shifted from prophecies of betrayal to a quintessentially Italian debate. Should the sauce be made with pancetta or guanciale? Now, for anyone familiar with the tenets of Judaism, this is a profound violation. In Hebrew mythology, the pig is considered an unclean animal. Not eating pork is one of the most fundamental dietary laws. So, when the ad went live, it was immediately met with a torrent of criticism from Western netizens. They saw this casual, almost comical, alteration of a sacred event, this rewriting of a divine menu, as a grave act of blasphemy. So to prevent you, my dear listeners, from making a culinary faux pas, should you ever find yourself sharing a meal with Adam and Eve, or perhaps Michael and Lucifer, today, your curator will guide you through the pantries of the divine. We will explore what the gods of world mythology truly ate, from main courses to snacks and beverages. Welcome back to the table of the gods. In truth, if we were to strictly discuss the diet of the god of the Abrahamic faiths, the answer would be simple. Whether we speak of Yahweh from Hebrew mythology or Jehovah from Christian mythology, in a classic monotheistic system, the all-knowing, all-powerful creator and his heavenly host of angels do not, by definition, need to eat. But the three great Abrahamic traditions are deeply intertwined, a tapestry of complex and sometimes contradictory texts. In these accounts, gods and angels do, on certain occasions, indulge their earthly appetites. Let's consider the main course. The mythology tells us that the Creator, seeing the corruption of the first humans, sent a great flood of 40 days and 40 nights to wipe clean all life on land. Only Noah and his family, heeding the divine command to build an ark, were spared. But for centuries thereafter, the earth remained a forsaken land. It wasn't until the birth of a man named Abraham that humanity reconnected to the Creator's divine Wi-Fi signal, so to speak, and was guided toward the promised land of Canaan. During this journey, however, Abraham was tormented by the fact that his wife was barren, and he had no heir. But then one day, 3 angels appeared before him. A delighted Abraham hurried to his herd and selected a fine, tender calf. He had it cooked, cut into pieces, and served it with freshly made flatbread to his 3 guests. After the meal, one of the visitors, who was, in fact, the Creator in disguise, made a covenant with Abraham before this simple meal of roasted beef. He promised that Abraham, at the age of 100, and his wife, at 90, would bear a son to be named Isaac. So, my dear listeners, should you ever meet the omnipotent Creator in person, don't rush to make a wish. First, try taking a fine cut of beef flank. Rub it generously with coarse salt, black pepper, and a touch of olive oil. After letting it marinate, grill it directly over an open flame for 8 to 12 minutes. This will yield an ancient-style, open-flame grilled beef, firm in texture and infused with a rich, smoky aroma. Then, take a measure of whole wheat flour, salt, and water, mixing them in a 3-to-1 ratio. Knead this into a dough, roll it out into moderately sized flatbreads and bake them in a hot oven for 2 to 4 minutes. What you will have is a perfect, unleavened bread. Paired with the beef you just grilled, these 2 dishes, prepared in complete reverence to the original myth, will serve as a main course that I am confident the Creator himself would find no fault with. Now, for a snack. For this, we must turn to a creature from Hebrew mythology that many of our listeners may know, the Leviathan. That's right, that unnameable, colossal beast of the deep is, in fact, an apocalyptic delicacy. According to the myths, on the 5th and 6th days of creation, God created the Leviathan, the great beast Behemoth, and the giant bird Zeus, symbolizing the untamable, primordial forces of chaos in the sea, on the land, and in the air. In the Hebrew tradition, it is said that when Judgment Day arrives, the Creator will first erase the souls of the wicked. He will then command his angels to drag the Leviathan from the depths of the sea and roast it over coals until its skin turns a glistening gold. Legend has it that once cooked and split open, the Leviathan emits an aroma so tantalizing it can travel from one end of the world to the other. At this moment, the Creator, alongside all the righteous and pure souls, will gather for this grand, apocalyptic barbecue. In a great festival, they will use spoons to scoop out the most tender parts of the Leviathan's flesh, an act symbolizing the complete and final conquest of primordial chaos. However, given that the difficulty of catching a wild Leviathan in our world is slightly greater than stumbling into a time-traveling embassy, we might need to find a substitute. For example, in Christian mythology, after Jesus was betrayed by Judas at the Last Supper and crucified, he rose again 3 days later. His disciples, upon seeing him, thought they were seeing a ghost. To calm their frightened hearts, he asked them for some roasted fish, and ate it right there, proving he had conquered death. So, in our world, we can try this. Take a tilapia, native to the Sea of Galilee. Cure it with coarse salt and season it with natural herbs like mint. Pan-fry it until golden on both sides. When plating, squeeze a little wild lemon juice over it. The result is an ancient Hebrew-style grilled fish with a tender texture that evokes the oceanic majesty of the Leviathan, while also being faithful to the mythological source. It would surely be a delightful diversion for the Creator. And what of beverages? The divine drink menu in the Abrahamic world is quite varied. We have the well-known wine, symbolizing the sacred blood of Christ, and the fresh milk Abraham offered the Creator during their barbecue. The list also includes honey, manna, and the holy nectar of heaven. But in our hospitality, we must not only think of the leader, we must also cater to the Creator's diligent messengers, the angels. For instance, in Milton's Paradise Lost, it is mentioned that when the Creator saw the demon Satan sneak into the Garden of Eden, he worried that Adam and Eve would be tempted and fall from grace. He thus dispatched the archangel Raphael to appear before the couple. Raphael warned them to be wary of a deceiver who would soon try to lead them to their ruin. And how did Adam, the first man, show his hospitality? He gathered an abundance of fresh fruits and grains from the Garden of Eden and served the archangel freshly squeezed juice, holding nothing back. So, whether you find yourself face to face with Michael, Raphael, or even Lucifer, try this. Take 2 fresh pomegranates and halve them. Juice the pulp, add a measure of water, and, according to your personal taste, a small amount of date syrup. Finally, chill it in the refrigerator for about an hour. You will have a traditional ancient Hebrew pomegranate juice, cool and refreshing, sweet yet tart, with a unique fruity fragrance. I guarantee it would earn you a celestial nod of approval from Raphael himself. Now, let us journey across the ocean to the Americas, to the myths led by the Maya and the Aztec. Here, whether we speak of the familiar feathered serpent god, Quetzalcoatl, or the god of darkness, Tecatlipoca, the divine menu is far less elaborate than that of their counterparts across the Atlantic. This is largely because the traditions of the indigenous peoples of the Americas were brutally interrupted by colonizers. But if we had to choose one main course for these gods, it would have to be human flesh. Many of you have likely heard of the Aztec custom of human sacrifice. In the Aztec worldview, before our current era, there were 4 previous ages or suns, each with its own generation of humanity and a corresponding sun god. Each of these previous ages and its people were destroyed for various reasons by their reigning sun god. When it came time for our era, the 5th, a god named Tixistecel was supposed to leap into a sacrificial bonfire to become the new sun. But at the last moment, he recoiled in fear. Instead, it was his sickly, humble brother, Nanahuatzin, who bravely threw himself into the flames, rising again as our sun god, Tenacia. But because of this, the sun of our age was born incredibly weak, unable to move across the sky on its own power. The Aztec gods realized that only a continuous flow of blood sacrifice could provide it with the power to complete its daily journey. The gods themselves set the example, one by one leaping into the fire to offer their own lives to the sun. But this was only the beginning. From then on, each day, Aztec priests would emulate the gods, offering the hearts of sacrificial victims to the weak and hungry sun. So, in our reality, let us once again seek an alternative. In some reconstructed myths, it is said that Aztec priests would sometimes mold maize flour into the shape of a heart to offer to their gods. After all, whether we speak of the Aztecs or their Maya brethren, any discussion of the Americas is incomplete without corn. It is no exaggeration to say that the domestication of maize was the greatest achievement of the indigenous American peoples. Both Maya and Aztec myths share a similar theme, that our generation of humanity was molded by the gods from maize duff. Therefore, in their cultures, corn is the very blood and bone of humankind. So, if you ever meet Tecatlipoca or Quetzalcoatl, you could try mixing maize flour with the ground seeds of the amaranth plant in a 1-to-1 ratio. Add a measure of honey to form a duff, then shape it as you please, perhaps into a heart, and let it air dry for 15 to 30 minutes. This will give you a Mesoamerican traditional food known as tzole, with a texture akin to a soft candy and a subtle, herbaceous aroma. To offer this to these ancient gods from the Americas might just make Tecatlipoca recall his lost youth under a long-ago Mexican sunset. As for a snack, we must mention the cacao bean, which, alongside corn and chili, forms a holy trinity in Maya and Aztec culture. According to another version of the creation myth, humanity was not made from maize duff, but was created by the Aztec feathered serpent god, Quetzalcoatl. He used the bones of beings from previous ages, retrieved from the underworld, and mixed them with his own divine blood. This meant that this version of humanity started its existence in epic difficulty mode, with nothing to eat. At that time, all the life-giving crops, corn, chili, cacao, are locked away inside a mountain of sustenance called Tonacapetl, for the god's exclusive enjoyment. The feathered serpent god could not bear to see the humans he had personally created starve to death. So he transformed himself into an ant, crawled into the sacred mountain, and brought back the seeds of the cacao tree and various other crops to the Aztec people. From that day forward, the Aztecs believed that by consuming cacao, they could become one with the feathered serpent god, receiving the strength and purification of this benevolent deity. It thus became a food reserved for royalty and nobility, a centerpiece of their most important ritual banquets. Therefore, if you find the feathered serpent god knocking on your door, you might try this: roast and grind cacao beans, then add a measure of water and whisk it into a foam. You can selectively add flavorings like chili or vanilla. This will produce a traditional Aztec beverage, xochitl, a drink that is bitter, spicy, and astringent. It is one I might personally refuse, but one that Quetzalcoatl would undoubtedly accept with pleasure. It would surely make the old god feel a deep sense of satisfaction. This brings us to a deeply poignant love story. In Aztec mythology, there was once a mortal goddess of exquisite beauty named Maya. She held dominion over all things related to love in the world. But her grandmother was a wicked demon, a Tzitzimitl, whose purpose was to one day devour all the light in the world. During a battle between the feathered serpent god and this demonic grandmother, Maya and Quetzalcoatl fell in love at first sight. They eloped to Central America. The enraged grandmother pursued them. With nowhere to hide, the two lovers transformed themselves into two intertwined trees, but the wicked grandmother immediately recognized the tree that was her granddaughter. She split the tree in two and tore her own granddaughter to shreds. Although the feathered serpent god eventually avenged his love, he was consumed by grief. Every night, he would weep over Maya-Huel's grave. As his tears fell upon the soil, the world's first agave plant sprouted. The other gods, unable to bear the feathered serpent's endless sorrow, fermented the agave into a drink. The moment Quetzalcoatl drank it, his soul was finally comforted. So, if you happen to meet one of the four creator gods of the Aztecs, you could try this: cut a mature agave and extract its sweet sap. Place it in a clay pot and allow it to ferment naturally at room temperature for 7 to 14 days. This will yield a traditional Mexican pulque, a beverage with a texture similar to diluted yogurt and a sweet and slightly sour taste upon first sip. To serve this to the ancient gods of the Americas would absolutely ensure their satisfied departure. Alright, that concludes our journey for today through the divine menus of Hebrew and Mesoamerican mythology, here at the table of the gods. As always, creating these deep dives into obscure topics is a labor of love. If you, my dear listeners, have enjoyed this series, your support is always appreciated. Next time, we will continue our quest, traveling to other mythological worlds to explore the delicacies on the tables of the gods. This is your curator, bringing you food for thought from the Museum of Ancient Lore. Until we meet again.